Mike, I've read you immigrated with your family to the United States when you were only 12 years old, and I imagine a transition like that had to be tough on you, especially under the circumstances that involved that transition. Do you mind giving our listeners a brief history on what was going on around that time that ended up bringing you to the U.S.?
Well, I was, first of all, thank you for having me, but I was 12 years old at the time. I lived in Cuba, in a small town in the eastern part of Cuba. I did not come from a wealthy family, very humble family. My father owned a sandwich shop. And on Christmas Eve, 1964, some guys in military olive uniforms came to our house, arrested my father, my mother, my sister, and I. My sister was 7, I was 9. They put us in the back of a DC-3. And I remember vividly the fear in my parents' eyes, because at the time they did not know what was going to happen to you. People were disappearing, people were being executed, but we were blessed. We were lucky enough that actually they threw us out of the country. We arrived in Mexico, where we lived for 6 months, received our U.S. visa in May of 1965, and came to live in the best country in the world.
Now, from what I understand, your father was a natural entrepreneur, and apparently the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. But before all that, and you don't see much of this today, you started working at a really young age, right, while you were in elementary school?
I did. I used to deliver fruits at a fruit stand in New York City. And then my father had an incredibly strong work ethic and one of self-reliance. So when I got into high school, I was awarded a scholarship along with a gentleman named Al Roker, who you may know from the Today Show.
Oh, yeah.
So Al and I spent 4 years in high school together. When I got home, I told my dad that I received a scholarship, and he asked me, is it because of your good grades? And I said, no, they gave me a scholarship because I am Hispanic. And he put his fork down, stared me down, and told me to stand up. I did. And he said to me, you're not missing an arm. You're not missing a leg. You get a job. You pay for half the tuition in this private school. I paid for the other half. So for the next 4 years, I worked at a hospital from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. And on the weekend at the New York American Museum of Natural History on Central Park West. So strong work ethic from a very early age, driven as by my father.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as being able to achieve the level of success you've obtained in life, how much credit do you give to your father for that?
I give my father, he was the role model. He was the guy who said, you never learn anything by doing easy things. Comments such as, opportunities stare at you every day. All you have to do is keep your eyes open and take some action. But unless you take some action, it doesn't mean anything. So my father was a poorly educated man formally, but highly educated when it came to values. My father has a 5th grade education. Ran a sandwich shop. So he's not a rocket scientist, but he had the heart of a lion and the work ethic of an elephant. He passed it on to us. I was allowed to be a risk taker by nature and encouraged by him to fail. He was never happy unless I came home with a story that had failed at one thing or another, whether it was going for the basketball team or whether it was putting stickball in the streets of New York. So he pushed me, and that push, sometimes it was painful because your friends are going to proms, your friends are going to go to a park on the weekend, and I was working, and my father would not accept anything else from me.
So let's talk about why you're on the show today. You have a new book out titled Humbled by the Journey, Life Lessons for My Family and Yours. What made you decide to put together a book like this?
Well, the book actually is my wife's idea. My wife is from Michigan. She is a wonderful individual. And one day she said to me, it's a shame that your children and grandchildren may not know the story behind your life the same way as I do not know the story behind my grandparents' life in Croatia. So you should write a book. But I thought it was a lot of vanity and ego to write a book about yourself. So I fought the idea for 9 years until finally I did, while taking a walk, 508-mile hike from France into northern Spain. And I used that walk to raise money for a children's hospital. So the genesis of this book actually was notes that I took during this hike. and then coming back and researching those notes. Thank God my parents are still alive. Last Monday, my father was 89, my mother was 84. So really, the book is the result of an effort to raise money for a children's hospital. By the way, we raised $6.4 million in 32 days.
Wow, that's amazing.
So any little bit that you can do to help somebody else, please do.
Mike, I know you've given so much back in the form of charitable contributions, and you're continuing to give back because all the proceeds of this book are going towards the Early Childhood Initiative Foundation. What exactly is this foundation, and why do you find it so important?
Well, I think it's very important that most children learn 30 to 50% of what they will ever learn in their life by age 5. We look at the hotel that we're going to stay at tonight when we're traveling, if we're traveling, whether it's a 1-star or a 5-star hotel, yet we drop off our kids at a place where they do child care, and we don't know if they're rated A, B, C, D, or E, or F. So the Early Childhood Initiative is run by the former publisher of the Miami Herald, dear friend, and David Lawrence. They do an incredible job in training teachers and pre-K schools how to properly train and educate our children, even at an early age. Talk to them about math, science, engineering, believe it or not, 4 and 5 years old. So we thought this was a great cause. Historically, we have given our monies to hospitals for health care or education, but this time we decided to raise the money for early childhood issues and in order to build great foundations for these children.
So as far as the book is concerned, and naturally we can't touch on everything, but one thing I think is key to the success of many people, and that you touch on, is being able to learn from failure. Why do we learn more from failure than success?
You know, I can give you an example. One time I was nailing nails on a piece of plywood, and I must have nailed 100 times, and I hit the nail right on the head, and it went perfectly in. Yet the one time that I missed the nail and I hit my thumb, I can tell you exactly where my thumb was, where the nail was, and how fast the hammer was traveling. We have a tendency to remember those things that are painful to us. And those days and those events are the learning moments in life. We learn very little from success. Actually, success can actually go to your head and make you start believing the PR that people tell you. Mm-hmm. Failure is a very grounded experience. And failure, I have found, is a necessary companion in our road to success, if that is our destination, being whatever that road may be.
You know, another topic I'd like to address is how you think helping the next generation is so important to good leadership. Why do you think that is?
They are the future. I'm 62 years old. I've had 2 heart attacks, cancer, and a few minor strokes. By the way, my first hike of 508 miles, I did it 2 months after I had cancer surgery.
Wow.
My second walk, I did it after a heart attack within 30 days. I will not be defined or be allowed not to achieve the things that I do, but my energy level is going down. My ability to be creative is going down, and I see it. I get tired easier than I used to do. So I like to invest in the future generation. They are our future, and we've done our contribution. At 62, I continue to work. I love what I do. I go to the office on Saturdays and Sundays, even for 5 minutes. I feel like I have something to do there. But I also recognize that our future is our children, and today a lot of them do not have good role models. Mondays, for example, every Monday I have 1 or 2 kids from local high schools that I don't know come in and talk to me. And once a month we have 80 or 90 kids from local community college come to our house. And I talk to them about failing and why it is so important to fail. Those are the teaching moments in life that we're going to remember.
And I suppose it's one thing to be financially wealthy, but you also get great satisfaction from being what you call emotionally wealthy as well. Speaking of, like family, personal values, these are all factors that have allowed you to succeed. Am I correct?
Well, I have been able to, with the help of some very smart people, because I happen to be the dumbest guy in the room, I have been able to build and sell 25 companies. Those companies have some core values that made them attractive to the buyer. Every one of those buyers was a public company. They're a publicly traded company, New York Stock Exchange companies, and they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for each of these companies that they have acquired. And what was different is we had values. Those companies had a heart. They recognized that the customer was king. They recognized that while my competitors were spending tens of millions of dollars of advertising, I was putting a fraction of that in improving customer service. So it is very important that you are proud of what you're doing in life. And values come from the heart. Values have an economic benefit. Now, I'm proof that a guy who could not finish college, who came to this country early, who speaks with an accent, who's been talked down at times by others because I am darker skin and I have an accent, I will not allow anyone to define me. I will do that myself. So that comes from that fortitude that you have, that when somebody talks down to you, you have a choice. The choice is you can feel squashed and you feel inferior, or you feel empowered to prove them wrong. I chose the second one.
You know, and like I mentioned before, readers can find all this information and more in your new book, Humbled by the Journey, Life Lessons for My Family and Yours. Mike, is there anything you'd like to add before we start to wrap things up, website, social media, that you would like to direct our listeners to?
The only thing that I would ask is go look at Facebook, Humbled by the Journey, and be good to the person next to you. It doesn't have to be writing them a check. Give them a smile. Someone that you don't know, give them a smile and ask them, what can I do for you today as you leave the office or you leave the place of work? Just leave those that come after you in a better position after they have met you than when you met them.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you once again for joining us on the show. I want to wish you continued success. It's been a pleasure sharing these few minutes with you.
Robert, thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.